Hello everybody, welcome back to our channel, Fighting Tiger Gaming. Today we are going to go ahead and go through our deck tech on our Commander Legends Baldur's Gate draft booster box that we opened up earlier. So the commander that we've chosen is going to be Sarevok Deathbringer. At the beginning of each player's instep, if no permanent left the battlefield this turn, that player loses X life, where X is Sarevok's power. We're also going to give it a background called Street Urchin, just so we have the ability to have a red and black deck to build off of. I could pay 1 to sacrifice another creature or an artifact. This creature deals 1 damage to any target. Not only does it benefit me to have a red and black deck, it also helps me to prevent myself to lose life, because this does not state opponents, it states each player. So I have to find a way to get rid of some artifacts or creatures to help me out. Mainly it's going to be permanents that are going to benefit us. We have also added some artifacts to assist us on sacrificing themselves to get us going about the field. So, that being said, give me a moment. We're going to go ahead and go over the next few cards. Alright everybody, as you know, our rules for this game, or make it break it, win a game challenge, we do allow ourselves 10 cards to put into the deck. In this situation with Baldur's Gate, where we're able to pull out as much cards that we need, that we don't have to actually pull from other sets, to fill out some gaps to mana fix. We managed to pick out a Rachnos Signet, a Commander Sphere, Temple of the False God, Temple of Malice, to be our helpers in today's challenge. Out of the box, we were able to pull out a Arcane Signet, a Mind Stone, Decanter of Endless Water, Wayfarer's Bauble, Navigation Orb, Mighty Servant of Leoku. It takes 4 to crew it. It's a 6/6 vehicle, and whenever this vehicle is crewed for the first time each turn, if it was crewed exactly by 2 creatures, it gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw 2 cards until end of turn. Now back to our equipments. Basilisk Collar. Equipped creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. Blade of Cells, we managed to pull that out of the box. Creature has Myriad. Two-Handed Axe. It's an adventure spell, including as an equipment spell. Paid 2, and I get the targeted creature I control gains double strike until end of turn. And then whenever I cast this back from exile, I get to equip it to a creature on my side. It attacks and it doubles its power until end of turn. Ghost Lantern. Return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. To your hand. Excuse me for my misreading of the card. And then whenever I cast it out for as an equipment, whenever a creature you control dies, put a 1/1 counter on equipped creature. We're going to be using this for our commander because our commander's ability is dealing X damage based off its power to any opponent or any player that hasn't lost a creature at the end step, or let me rephrase that hasn't lost a permanent, really. So this will help us out as long as we can pull it. Cloak of the Bat, giving a creature flying and haste. Swift-Foot Boots. This is going to help us protect our commander and also giving it haste when we need it. So that's our artifacts, equipment, and mana fixing, and as well as tracking down for lands when we need it. Moving on, we did add a couple of enchantments. We managed to pull a Descent into Avernus. Whole point of this is just put a time clock. I know there's some people that like to build up their life points. If I'm able to have them distract on trying to build their life and try to figure out how to destroy this enchantment, will benefit us tremendously. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 descent counters onto this enchantment. Then each player creates a X treasure token at the beginning of our upkeep, and it deals X damage to each opponent or each player as it goes out, where X is the descent counters. Wand of Wander is another artifact we've added, and what it does is we'll pay 4. We can pay 4, tap it, roll a d20. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant sorcery card, then shuffle the rest into the library. You may cast up to X instants and or sorcery spells from among those cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. So 1 through 9 is 1, 10 through 19 is 2, and 20 is 3, where X will be the replacement for that. We managed to get a few aura enchantments as well. Shiny Impetus will enchant someone's creature, give it a +2/+2, and goad it, so it'll deal damage. And every time that creature attacks, we'll create a treasure token ourselves. Parasitic Impetus. Enchanted creature is goaded with a 2/2 on it, and whenever it attacks, its controller loses 2 life, and I'll gain 2 life. Moving on from there, we're going to go to our creatures. Creatures we've added to the deck is Gut True Soul Zealot. So whenever we attack, I may sacrifice a creature or artifact, and I get to create a 4/1 black skeleton creature with menace, and that's a tapped and attacking. Amber Gristle O Maul has haste. Whenever it attacks, discard your hand, and if you do, draw a card for each player being attacked. We're going to try to get down to a 0 hand once we play out her, and just attack everybody as we can, and try to get as many cards back so we can continue the cycle. Visonia Drow Apostate. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, return a creature card at random from your graveyard to your hand. It's the only benefit us to recycle what we need to get. Mahadi Emporium Master. This will help us out whenever we go ahead and we'll create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. We're going to use this to benefit our commander, as in we're going to sacrifice our treasure tokens to destroy permanents versus us using it as mana fixing or mana base currency, because we're not going to have many opportunities to have as many treasure tokens to sack them to protect us from getting dealt damage from our commander. Elturo Survivors. They have Trample, and Myriad, and X is going to be their +X+0 for however many lands each the defending player has, and it's going to pick and choose as it goes. So whenever the next person gets hit by the Myriad copies, they'll get dealt whatever damage they have based off their lands. Then we have an Elder Brain. Whenever this attacks a player, exile all cards from that player's hand, then they draw that many cards. I may play a land and cast spells from among the exiled cards as long as they remain exiled. And if I cast them this way, I can spend mana as though it were of any color. So I can cast and have fun with that. Intellect Devour, similar to what Elderbrain does. This time around, I get to play lands and cast spells among exiles with this this card as well. We've added a Reckless Barbarian, 2 mana. We could sacrifice it and gain 2 mana at the end of the turn when we need to. We'll use them to just hit a little bit, but also gain back our mana and recast other things to help us from taking any damage. Ganassi's Enforcers has Myriad. Whole point of it is just to deal damage at this point, and I can also give it a +1/+0 until end of turn. Hoarding Ogre. Whole point of this guy is to be able to hit somebody and go ahead and create treasure tokens to sack them. The Fanatics. Again, it's a 4/3 haste. It's going to just deal damage. It has Myriad. Moldfolk. Lifelink. I get to sacrifice another creature or an artifact, put a 1/1 counter on Moldfolk. It'll benefit us to give us the ability to sacrifice those treasure tokens when the time does come, or sacrifice certain creatures without having to do too much for them. And then Guild Sworn Prowler, Death Touch. When it dies, if it wasn't blocking, I get to draw a card. Ghastly Death Tyrant. When it enters the battlefield, I can destroy target enchantment an opponent controls, and then I'll lose life equal to the mana value. Or creatures I control gain Death Touch until the end of turn. It's a 6/5 for a 6 drop. I'm using this to help get rid of some of the people's enchantments that use more of a pillow fort tactic, where I can't attack you unless you pay this. Most cases I won't have the mana to do it, so I'm going to use that to help me out on that. The Baldur's Gate set didn't have too much to get rid of enchantments. Vicious Battle Rager enters the battlefield. I take the initiative. So it's going to help me out. Go down to the dungeon. I'm going to go through the path that gives me treasure tokens as I go about it, and hopefully make it through without getting hit too much, because you will lose the initiative or the dungeon as you go about it. And whenever this becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller loses 5 life. It's a 1/5. Brock, flying at the beginning of my end step. If a permanent I control left the battlefield this turn, each opponent loses 3 life. Again, we're going to be sacrificing artifacts. In most cases, it's going to be the treasure tokens, and occasionally we'll sacrifice a creature. So we're going to be dealing damage as we go about it. Now, we've added some artifact creatures that are going to be benefiting from what we're going to go over on our lance that we've selected for this deck. In this case, we have the Gate Colossus. This spell costs 1 less for each gate you control. We have about 6 gates that we're adding into the deck, so it's going to benefit us there. This creature can be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and whenever this enters the battlefield under my control, I may put a gate. Whenever a gate enters the battlefield under my control, I may put Gate Colossus from my graveyard to the top of my library if I choose. Treasure Keeper. It's a 4 cost for a 3/3. I'm going to use this to help me out to go ahead and reveal the top cards of my library for a mana value 3 whenever this guy gets destroyed, and then cast it without paying its mana cost. So I'm going to use this to kind of help out picking out some mana fixing, like the Arcane Signet, or maybe a Rakdos Charm, or Rakdos Signet to be more exact. We have a Rug of Smothering. Whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 1 life for each spell they cast this turn. It's a 1/3. We're going to try to keep this alive. I know there's people that like to sling out as much as they can. We have a Geode Golem. Everyone knows this. I would assume at some point it deals any kind of damage to anybody, and then I get to cast out my commander for free. Bronze Walrus. It's a 3 mana cost for a 2/2, and I get to scry to whenever it enters the battlefield and get to add 1, tap it for any mana color. Marching Duodrone. 2 cost for a 2/2. Whenever it attacks, each player gets to create a treasure token. Again, we're going to try to get some treasure tokens for ourselves. Clockwork Fox. We're going to use this to be kind of a sacrificial lamb for us. So whenever this leaves the battlefield, I get to draw 2 cards and everybody gets to draw a card. We're going to try to be kind of friendly on that one. But now, moving on to our sorceries and instant spells that we selected for ourselves. We're going to go ahead and add we're adding to ourselves a Pack Attack. Attacking creatures get a +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of players being attacked. Then I get to draw a card. A Lightning Bolt to take care of any kind of pesky creatures. Breath Weapon deals 2 damage to each non-dragon creature. Luckily, most of our creatures that we're going to be playing out are going to be around 3 toughness, so they should survive. We're also adding Earth Tremors. Deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of lands I control. Armor of Shadows. This is to help protect one of our creatures whenever we need them, especially when it comes down to the indestructible. Cast Down. Get rid of a regular creature that isn't a legendary. Murder. Get rid of any creature. Deadly Dispute. I have to go ahead and sacrifice an artifact or a creature on my side. I get to draw 2 cards and create a treasure token. Fireball. If need be, if we have enough mana to go about it, we can go ahead and eliminate somebody with this. Coronation of Chaos. Up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn, and I get to goad them. Thunder Wave. Roll a d20, and this is where gambling comes into play. Not necessarily going to have to worry about if I have an empty board or a board that doesn't mean anything to me and everyone else has something. I'm going to use this to help out board wipe a lot of folks. And how it goes about it is you roll a d20, and if it lands through 1 through 9, it deals 3 damage to each creature. 10 to 19, I get to pick a creature, and then that creature doesn't get damaged this way, but everybody else's creature does. And if I get to 20, I get to deal 6 damage to each creature my opponents control versus everybody in general. And then Atrocious Experiment. Target player mills 2 cards, draws 2 cards, and loses 2 life. I'm going to use this more on myself to go ahead and draw some cards when we need them. And then Edict. Roll a d20, 1 through 9. Choose an opponent. That player sacrifices a creature. Get 10 through 19, each opponent sacrifices a creature, and if I get to 20, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls. Now, we're not targeting anybody in particular on this one, so this will work on hexproof and indestructible creatures themselves. Arms of Hadar, creatures target player control. Creatures target player controls gets -2/-2. Most players won't have hexproof for themselves. Mainly it's going to be their creatures, and I'm not targeting their creatures, I'm targeting them. Cloud Kill, another board wipe when we need it. All creatures get -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander I control on the battlefield. Again, if I have to sacrifice a commander to live, I'll do it. We're going to try to get rid of anybody else's equipment when they have it. Ambitious Coast, I draw 3 cards and then lose 3 life. It's a 4 mana cost, again, to draw cards when we need it. Now, that being said, we're going to get to our mana that we were mentioning earlier. So we managed to pull a Luxury Suite. So as long as I have 2 or more opponents, I get to put this out onto the battlefield untapped. And it goes for red and black. I got a Reflecting Pool, add a mana of any color that any lands that I control could produce. We got a Command Tower. These are the gates that we've managed to put into our deck. So Baldur's Gate, tap for a colorless mana, pay 2, add X mana of any one color where X is the number of other gates. That's 1 gate itself, and we'll have 6 others with it. We added a Basilisk Gate. Again, tap it for any colorless mana, pay 2, and then target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of gates I control. I can only activate it as a sorcery, so I have to keep that in mind. We added a Gone Gate. Gates I controlled enter the battlefield untapped. So other gates, such as the ones that you pick another mana source, it enters tapped. I can now have them come in entering untapped. And I could tap this for a colorless, and then tap this as well as add 1 mana of any color that a gate I control can produce. Heat Gate, similar to as before, except pay 1, add 1 mana color of any color, add 1 mana of any color, pay 1, tap an untapped gate I control and create a treasure token. Black Dragon Gate, this is where the gates come in, where they enter tap, and I get to pick a different color other than what it creates. This one creates a black mana source, so I'll choose red. Cliff Gate, same as before. This time, instead of picking red, I'll be picking black. And then we're just coming down to our basic swamps and mountains. So I believe I ended up adding about 15 of each, if I remember correctly. So that being said, for what we have for ourselves in this deck tech from our Make It Break It Win It game with the Baldur's Gate Draft Booster challenge, I do hope that we do end up winning the challenge itself this time around. I know with the other few decks that we've been building, they were kind of lackluster, and I'm going to assume that maybe it's just comes down to luck on pulling certain cards that we need. I don't know. I might end up changing up the challenge itself altogether and having to add something into it to kind of make it a little simpler and easier to build a decent deck. This one's just going to come down to luck and as to what we draw versus coming up to a skill with the commander at this point. Again, we're choosing Sarevok Deathbringer at the beginning of each player's instep. If no permanents left the battlefield this turn, that player loses X life, where X is this creature's power. We have a few things that will boost it, and we have a few things that we're going to use to sack creatures on our time whenever we need to, or sacrifice artifacts such as treasure tokens. I do appreciate you all coming out and watching this video. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help out to make these contents a bit better. And if you think we should just go ahead and add other things into the challenge to make it simpler and easier to win a game, just feel free to leave a comment and let us know. You all have a good day. Thank you for watching.